I mean, basically, why would you not consider yourself a Muslim?
I have issues with the Islamic faith, okay? My major issue is that, and I got a lot of hate for my lecture, okay? But I believe that religion, organized religion, it changes over time. So maybe in the beginning, it had certain ideas, but in order to accommodate empire, in order to accommodate politics, it shifted over time to become much more conformist, but become much more static. And I don't like that. My sympathies are toward connection with God directly, right? So rather have an intermediary telling you what God thinks, well, you should be able to feel God in your heart. Okay? And I mean, like, people have said I'm agnostic, or I'm a Luciferian. I don't know what these terms mean, okay? But I believe that we're all individuals with the divine spark in us. And so we should be all able to connect directly to God. And we should all be able to exercise our imagination, our intuition.
Okay, we talked about communism and your predictions. So, okay, the one that I watched last or 2 nights ago about Islamic Empire, the way you talk about Islam is, it sounds, well, from my perspective, obviously I'm biased. You speak with a different sort of righteousness in your voice, and also you did want to go visit Mecca. And my favorite part of this lecture was you were talking about the weaknesses and the advantages of each faith. And you mentioned in Christianity that the benefit was that it was a religion of empire, that the Romans use it as power and control, right? But the weakness was that the Trinity didn't make any sense to you. Well, to many people, even a lot of Christians, right?
It makes no sense at all.
Why does the Trinity not make any sense to you?
Right. Well, because, we think through intuition, right? So, like, how do we know something is right? Well, we know something is right because it sounds right, because it connects with us, right? But the entire point of the Holy Trinity, okay, an idea that three things can be separate but connected, three things that are different from each other can be at one at the same time. It's meant to confuse you. It's meant to create cognitive dissonance. And so when you accept the idea of the Trinity, the idea is that now you open your portal to all sorts of whatever crap propaganda that they want to instill in you as well. And that's why the Holy Trinity is the very basis of the Catholic religion.
Mm-hmm. And remember, the weakness you said about Islam was that it was too simple and clear, which was like, that really it struck me, because it's like, that doesn't sound like a weakness. That sounds like if I'm in a job interview, you'd be like, what are your weaknesses? And I'm like, well, I'm too direct, I'm too simple, and I work too hard, right? So why would you consider that a weakness?
Well, because we talk to the Frankists. What the Frankists will say is that this is a world of Satan. And so to really rule the world, to really conquer the world, you need to embrace the demonic. You need to be multifaceted. You need to have multiple personalities. You have to, like what you are in the outside has to be different from what you are in the inside. You have to practice depravity. You have to practice manipulation, right? So if you're too simple, you're too direct, that limits your maneuverability in politics.
Okay, so it's a weakness because people will take advantage of, because being Islam it's all about submission to God. So that, in terms of empire, it's a weakness in this world.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
What do you disagree at all? I mean, basically, why would you not consider yourself a Muslim?
So I have issues with the Islamic faith, okay? My major issue is that, and I got a lot of hate for my lecture, okay? But I believe that religion, organized religion, it changes over time. So maybe in the beginning, it had certain ideas. But in order to accommodate empire, in order to accommodate politics, it shifted over time to become much more conformist, but become much more static. And I don't like that. Okay, I mean, I mean, my sympathies are toward connection with God directly, right? So rather have an intermediary telling you what God thinks, well, you should be able to feel God in your heart. Okay, and I mean, like, people have said I'm agnostic, or I'm a Luciferian. I don't know what these terms mean. Okay, but I believe that we're all individuals with the divine spark in us. And so we should be all able to connect directly to God. And we should all be able to exercise our imagination, our intuition.
So the disagreement is the divinity within, because in Islam it's like we don't believe God is within. It's that we worship God because
right.
He's divine. Okay, so you think there's divine spark within us?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, is that not isn't that similar? Not exactly, but isn't that a lot what the Frankists believe? That's why they sin. That's why they do things, because sinning is where you get divine power. That's what they believe.
Right. So the Frankists believe that if we're in this world, we should conquer this world and enjoy the pleasures of this world. Okay. So they believe in longevity. They believe in transhumanism. Okay. And this explains why things are happening the way they are. These billionaires, what are they obsessed with? They're obsessed with living forever, right? Transhumanism. And that's a very Frankist mentality. I, on the other hand, believe that our souls are immortal. And this world is just one of many worlds. And we come to this world in order to experience things that we couldn't experience in the astral plane, okay? Because in the astral plane, you're pure force, you're pure energy, right? You can't actually feel pain. You can't have sex. You can't eat any food. So we're here to have these rare, unique experiences that make us more enlightened. And we're here also to bring comfort, to bring enlightenment, to bring joy to others as well. Because that's what makes us really happy, our connections with others. So there are things that we cannot experience elsewhere that we can experience here. And so we should make the most of our opportunities while we're here. But at the same time, as these immortal divine souls, we're constantly in the process of seeking enlightenment. And the problem is that if you make a mistake, okay, if you choose a path that is wrong, okay, for example, you choose to be Jeffrey Epstein, right? Well, there has to be a fail-safe mechanism in order to steer you into the right direction. And this fail-safe mechanism is death. Death is release. Death is catharsis, right? Death is an escape from this hell that we live in. But don't worry because your soul won't die, and eventually you'll come back to this world to live a better life based on the mistakes you made in this life, right? So the Frankists want to live forever because they cannot countenance the possibility that they'll go back in the astral plane and discover all the evil that they've done. Okay, so they want to avoid this possibility. Yeah. Right. Whereas I think a true human is to appreciate that the universe is a journey. Life is a journey towards enlightenment, which is to be closer to God. And this is what all religious traditions teach, by the way.
Okay. So where do you think that we go when we die?
I think that we're composed of different elements. Okay, so I think consciousness is multidimensional, or infinite in its dimensions. And so there's a part of us that's a soul, but then there's parts of us as well that dissipates into the ether. Okay, so it's very complicated. I can't really describe it using language, but it's like we are here and we are forever. Okay, we're now, but we're also eternal. Mm-hmm. And so, when we die, there's part of us that goes back to the astral plane, but then there's also a part of us that seeps into others as well, like memories, right? We live on as memories in others. And so I think the point of our existence is to create, is to make ourselves memorable in the minds of others, right? And so that's what drives me. Okay, so one way to do that, of course, is to have children, and to raise your children and to be happy and healthy. Another way of doing that is to be kind and generous to others, so that you impact their lives in a positive manner. And another way of doing that is through teaching, which is what I do online. And that's why I'm talking to you, because you have an audience, you have a huge audience that I don't actually interact with. I deal with an older audience. And like for you, I'm able to spread my message to others and leave an imprint on others that may impact their lives for the better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the purpose of life.
But that's the difference between a Frankist and someone like you, because it seems like you want to put out good, and we appreciate your work greatly. But so many people, there was, I'm sure you know Andrew Tate, he made the argument that Epstein was a successful man because Epstein is memorable and people have immortalized him within memes if he's actually dead. And, you know, he made his mark and people know who he is. The difference between your belief and somebody like Tate when he's saying Epstein is a success is that you want to be remembered through good things, right? If you want to just be remembered on its own, then you can start a pedophile island and blackmail people for Israel, but that's not going to...
That takes skill. Let's give him some credit, okay? That takes some talent to pull off. Like to deal with Bill Clinton and Bill Gates at the same time.
He was good at what he did, undeniably. But would you consider Epstein a successful man because he's immortalized and he's going to be remembered?
You know, that's a really good question. I think Andrew Tate is right. I think he is successful in that he will become forever. He'll be a historical figure because like 100 years from now we'll still be talking about Jeffrey Epstein. You know, so yeah, and you know that's a very Frankish mentality. You know, like it's not about living a good life; it's living a memorable life, right? But I'm trying to provide an alternative where, you know what, wouldn't it be better to be remembered for like good things because that will inspire people to good, right? I mean, Jeffrey Epstein is going to inspire people to evil, whereas I'm going to inspire people to good. But you know, like that's a very important idea in religion where where it's a law of symmetry or polarity, where, you know, if someone like Jeffrey Epstein, who's pure evil exists, then someone who's pure good will exist as well. So good must exist alongside evil. So I mean, like the fundamental law of the universe is free will, free choice. If Jeffrey Epstein chooses to be evil, and we can't blame him for that, okay? Because it's his choice. But we can also choose to be good, and that's a challenge before us. When there are these evil role models, you have to choose to be the light of this world, and that's what makes this life so interesting, and that's what makes your choice memorable, because you're able to do the thing that goes against convention, whether it's doing tremendous evil or it's doing tremendous good. It goes against convention both ways, right?
Mm-hmm. So why do you choose, if you said that being remembered is a metric of success, why do you choose to do good and not evil?
Because I can't sleep at night if I do evil. You know, it's that simple. I mean, like, you know, I went to Yale, and, you know, at Yale, they teach you to be Frankist, right? I'm like, I'm sorry, but you know, these Ivy League are all like MK Ultra indoctrination machines. But I couldn't sleep at night if I knew in my heart that I brought some evil in this world. So, you know, I think that our consciousness is all infinite. We're always communicating with the past, the future, with the here and the now, but also the infinite and the eternal. And it's really what you choose to focus on. And in my mind, it's focused on certain things. I'm opening myself up to consciousness. And I want to be able to sleep well at night, okay? And then you look at Jeffrey Epstein and how he's able to do what he did. And the reason why is he can't sleep at night. So he has to engage in drugs. He has to engage in all this evil in order to move on with his life. Because once you embrace the demonic, then you are trapped, okay, by the demonic. Then you have to fully embrace the demonic, and you have to like worship it in order to basically live on.
All right, so Epstein is serving demonic entities, and doing good is serving God, correct?
That's a metaphorical way of putting it, yes. But I think what's really important is that God is not judgmental, okay? God has given us free will, and we can do whatever we want. And God will never punish us for evil. God won't reward us for good. It's because we ourselves seek enlightenment. It's because we ourselves seek to feel better about ourselves that we commit to good.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is keeping you up at night if you do something wrong? I'm sure everybody can relate to this watching this, right? If you're rude to a friend, or say you get emotional in a class and you lash out at Amber because she's reading slow or something, what is the reason why you kept up? Like, so what is that thought keeping you awake?
Empathy, right? Empathy, because like when you shout at someone and then you go away, you're able to remember what you did, but you're able to switch perspective and see how that person feels being shouted at, because you yourself were shouted at, right? And the question is like, where does empathy come from? And I think empathy just comes from wisdom. It comes from living many lives and having different perspectives. So for me, I just read a lot. As a young person, I was an alienated individual. I was an immigrant in Toronto. I was bullied a lot. And so I just read a lot. When you read a lot, you develop empathy.
Mm-hmm. Depends on what you read. You could read sex magic books like Epstein, or read, he had a book, next to the Talmud that said, sure you've seen this, right? He had books about Kabbalah, sex magic, and stuff. If you read the wrong literature, I'm sure you could also be.
I mean, like the public libraries don't have these books, right? So I stuck with, like literature and science fiction and fantasy.
Okay. Yeah, and I really liked your lecture about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you said you've read a lot of books about parenting and trying to find the right styles and the right ways to raise your children. What sort of mistakes do you think people are making in raising their children?
I think the biggest mistake is to believe that your child is a blank slate, because that's what I believed when I first had kids. And what I believe that is that, if I build good habits, if I present myself as a good role model, if I steer my kids to the right activities, then my kid will be better and better. And what I didn't recognize is that every child is an independent person capable of all agency from the first day. And every child wants to be respected. Every child wants to be independent. Every child wants to pick his or her path. And that's the only way to enlightenment, okay? If the child is allowed to be himself or herself and make his own mistakes. I have 3 kids and they're all different personalities. And I wanted, I have a certain idea in my head of what I wanted my kids to be. And then the harder I try, the more frustrated I get because my kids refuse to obey me. And so over these past 3 years, the greatest lesson that I've taught my kids is to respect the freedom of each individual, to be non-judgmental, to appreciate my child for himself or herself. And I really think that's the greatest mistake that parents make.
Kind of like the Islamic rule, like allow tolerance of other faiths and religion, let people.
I will tell you this, okay? I will tell you this. I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to quite a few Islamic countries, and it surprised me how happy the kids are. Okay, I mean, like if you go to Islamic countries, the kids are a lot happier, a lot healthier, a lot more emotionally regulated than Western kids.
Mm-hmm. And you said that I saw your video about growing up in Toronto and getting bullied, and obviously I can relate. I mean, I probably don't look as Asian now, but I grew up super, I got some of the same things, and so did my mother. And so when you were alienated and reading these books, what was the most transformative literature that you found?
When I was young, I read a lot. In the first stage, I was a huge fan of Isaac Asimov because I was really into science fiction. And I just loved the way that he looked at the world from a macro perspective. So he was not a great writer, but he had a very vivid imagination. And I really appreciated that. And so reading Isaac Asimov just really helped to expand my imagination. For the longest time, I was a huge fan of Ayn Rand, The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, because I also believed in individualism. I also believed I was a persecuted genius who would one day show the world that I was right. So as a teenager, I was really into Ayn Rand. And then I got into John Steinbeck a lot because I was really into his stories. So I've been through different phases. I was also a really avid comic book fan. Okay, so I love the X-Men. When I was young, I read the X-Men all the time. They're my favorite characters because the world of the X-Men seemed much more real than like the world of Spider-Man or the Avengers, right? Because the Spider-Man, Avengers, it's pretty simple good versus evil world. Whereas X-Men, there's actually a lot of more ambiguity. Like, is Magneto a really good person or a bad person, right? Because Magneto is trying to save his people. And Magneto is being realistic about the intentions of human beings. Like, if we just trust human beings, they're going to come kill all of us, right? Mm-hmm. So I was really into X-Men comics for a long, long time.